You can see how much chaparral we have here and how healthy it is.
Joseph Mitchell and Diane Conklin bought a house on a ridge in Ramona in 1999 because they love the open space. They saw one of the mountains sloping up the other side of Kimball Valley and knew they found the right place.
It's an antidote to life today, to look out the window. All I have to do is look out the window.
We spent a lot of time doing that.
They also understand their beautiful view comes with the existential threat of wildfire.
This looked like a moonscape in 2003 after the fire came through.
The 2003 Cedar Fire was sparked by a hunter in the backcountry. Mitchell says it burned down 2/3 of their neighborhood. Their house survived, though. They had just received a permit for a home defense sprinkler system. Mitchell, a particle physicist, built it from scratch.
Said, I'll give it a good test this weekend. And the next day was the Cedar Fire.
3 years later, SDG&E announced plans to build a high-voltage transmission line through the same valley scarred by the Cedar Fire. They called it the Sunrise Power Link. The couple opposed the power link right from the start. Mitchell had been researching historical state fire data and realized power line fires were often more severe. In the present day, they've caused more than a quarter of the state's most destructive wildfires, according to CAL FIRE. In 2006, Mitchell and Conklin channeled their advocacy through a small nonprofit they'd started a few years earlier, the Mussey Grade Road Alliance. Eventually, SDG&E rerouted the power link south.
If neighbors come together and fight, they win.
Since then, Conklin and Mitchell have continued fighting utility plans during state regulatory proceedings, and in the process have become members of a somewhat exclusive club. They're among a handful of groups statewide called intervenors. They comb through arcane documents, sometimes numbering thousands of pages, to advocate for things they believe the utility should better prioritize. SDG&E is owned by Sempra, one of California's largest companies. Conklin says the David versus Goliath resource gap doesn't matter.
It matters how factual you are, and it matters how principled you are. And so in the end, I think that the bugaboo about it being complicated, well, everything's complicated. But, as a former journalist myself, if it's complex, it's suspect. So you just do it.
The Mussey Grade Road Alliance's latest project is SDG&E's request to raise customer rates about 8.5% starting in 2028. The utility, intervenors, and regulators will now hash out whether that request is reasonable. It's part of a complicated 18-plus month budgeting process called a general rate case. SDG&E spokesperson Anthony Wagner says a lot of intervenors have sharp pencils when it comes to utility proposals, but he says they make the process more fair and transparent.
All viewpoints inform the scrutiny of what our original proposal is, and it helps make our policy document better.
SDG&E says the rate request prioritizes affordability and service reliability. The 5 voting members of the California Public Utilities Commission will have ultimate say on it. The stakes are high for SDG&E customers. 1 in 5 households are currently behind on their bills, according to state data. Community activists railed against SDG&E rates in front of parent company Sempra's downtown San Diego headquarters last week.
How do you spell corporate greed?
SDG&E.
How do you spell corporate greed?
SDG&E.
Many intervenors base their arguments around affordability, including the nonprofit San Diego-based Utility Consumers Action Network. Executive Director Edward Lopez says UCAN may push SDG&E less on services delivered and more on whether certain new infrastructure is necessary.
Over the years, we've done our best to try to assert that, wait a minute here, what the utility is requesting is just too much.
For the 2028 rate request, UCAN is looking into SDG&E's proposals for wildfire mitigation, which involves burying power lines and covering conductors. The utility needs to follow state law and says reducing fire risk reduces legal liability. But those projects also have a price tag.
And most parties will agree there's worth to a certain level of investment, but at what point does your sort of return on that investment start to diminish and the investment itself starts outweighing that return?
During the last rate request cycle, SDG&E asked to collect about $3 billion from customers in 2024. The Public Utilities Commission ultimately approved $2.7 billion. Intervenors are compensated for their work by the Commission, but only if their arguments impact the final decision, and they don't duplicate the work of others. University of San Diego energy attorney Joe Katz credits intervenors for their successes, but he says there are limits to their impact.
It's a regulated monopoly. It's their system, their equipment. They know how their business operates, and they're the author of the application that the regulator is reviewing. And so when interveners are looking at it, right, if they're introducing their own evidence, it has to be persuasive enough or carry enough weight.
That and limited staffing are why most interveners tend to make narrow challenges and recommendations. Back in Ramona, Conklin and Mitchell say they'll keep doing the work as long as it makes a difference.
You'd never actually get to see the effect of the fire that doesn't start, but I know it's out there. And, when utility bills are up less than they would have been up otherwise, I know I'm part of that too.
Still, squaring off with the utilities can be a lonely fight, and they'd love to have more company in the trenches. Kevin Trevellyan, KPBS News.